Hi, this is another edition of Highstreet Carpentry, a tutorial aimed at rehabilitating an 1800s eyelet window. The frame of this window is loose, some of the panes of glass are broken, and the glazing is in really bad condition. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this thing new again. The first thing I did was create an air draft. There is a fan in front of me in a window, and behind me is an open window. I literally have a draft of air blowing past me, which is important because the paint stripper is fairly caustic. I'm also using a heat gun to soften the old glazing up, being careful not to get it too close to the intact panes of glass for fear of cracking them. Once all the broken glass is out and the old glazing is removed, I will sand the frame, repair any broken mullions, those are the thin strips of wood between the panes of glass. I'll epoxy the frame back together and prepare it for the next phase.
On the last video you saw the de-glazing of the old window, the stripping of the paint, a little time-lapse action there, and then I epoxied the joints. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get the window pieces of glass ready. There were some broken ones that had to be replaced, so I had those cut down the street, Glass Unlimited. Thanks, Vance. And I'm going to be putting those in. Now, when I re-epoxied this together, the joints were really loose, so when I tighten it back up again, some of the pieces don't fit. So what I'm going to do is, for instance, this piece wants to go in here, but I need to take a little off this edge. So what I'm going to do is just sand that edge. All right, so I got all the pieces of glass in that were made from the templates that I gave the glass guy, and I just cardboard. A couple of them were a little tight, so 120 grit. Don't use the highest speed on the sander, but a little lower. And then you can finish off the edges. It's really easy. What I say about the glazing part of the product, which is important to remember, is that stuff has got to be, fresh. So when you open it up, if it's not brand spanking new, you have to check it, make sure that it is just a consistency of nice, soft, doughy clay. If it's at all brittle or if it has any cracking in it whatsoever, look for another can. You need to be able to move this as smoothly as possible, and the only way you're going to do that is by getting the softest compound you can. 33 window glazing is what I use. I have a tendency to say a lot. This is just a fairly flexible palette knife, and I've cleaned it off, and it has one edge is very rectangular, and another one has a slight bevel on it. This is just, I'm going to use the sharper edge to cut when I get into here. So let's zero in and we'll see how this works.
Before I set and pinned the glass in, I painted on a liberal amount of boiled linseed oil over the inside of the mullions where the glazing is to go. I let it dry for about a week, and now we're ready to glaze. I'll roll out roughly a 1/4 inch thick rope of glazing and place it. Now I'm not being too fussy on consistency, as it will trowel out evenly. Remember that it is important that your mullions are straight and smooth, as this will determine how nice and even your glazing will turn out. So this is called bedding or seeding the compound. Now when you do this, it is important that you really put a fair amount of pressure against the mullion. This will ensure that it is seated correctly and firmly, which is crucial in order to get the glazing to smoothen out when we do our final trowel. Sometimes you'll need to wet the glazing. You can use either drool or warm water. What this does is it'll help the putty from pulling up as you trowel it out. Again, I take the trowel and I keep it as flat as I can and at a very low angle, and drawing it down as flat as possible. Fair amount of pressure is exerted here, being careful to look ahead as you're pulling the knife down to keep a consistent and even edge. Now all we have to do is clean away the excess and move on to the next one. Remember, any minimal residue will get cleaned up after priming. So at this point, we just want to make sure that we have a consistent and even glazed line. Now it is time to do the rest of them. I always enjoy doing this. It is very therapeutic, and even though it is a bit time consuming, there is nothing quite like the feeling of having done it yourself. Some new glass, some new glazing, and guess what, folks? We're ready for some primer, we're ready for some paint, and we're ready to clean this puppy up and get it installed.